You probably wouldn't recognize Hayward Lane unless you grew up around here. It's just a cracked stretch of asphalt wedged between an overgrown lot and an empty cul-de-sac, a place you pass without thinking. At the end of it is what's left of the Murchison house, a forgotten shell with a roof sagging like wet cardboard and siding bleached nearly white by sun and time. When I was 16, I spent the night inside it. It started like most teenage disasters do, a dare. Liam, Garrett, and I were riding bikes behind the strip mall when Garrett brought it up. He said his older brother tried to spend a night there once but bailed by midnight. Said he heard footsteps from the basement that didn't stop until he left. Liam laughed it off, said the real reason he bailed was probably because of rats. But me? I couldn't stop thinking about that detail. Footsteps. Not scratching. Not squeaking. Footsteps. We made the rules simple. 1 sleeping bag. 1 flashlight. No phone, no watch. Stay inside from sundown to sunrise. The first hour wasn't so bad. I got in through a broken panel in the back. Someone had already peeled it off, probably for copper wiring. The air smelled like moldy wood and wet insulation. It was cold in a way that didn't match the season. Summer outside, winter in. I set up my bag in what used to be the living room, the fireplace still choked with ash. My flashlight only reached so far before the shadows swallowed the rest. There were weird things left behind. A child's shoe in the middle of the hallway. A cracked photo frame face down under the stairs. And the walls, Jesus, the walls had writing. Not graffiti. Not tags. Just names. Hundreds of them. All in red ink. First names only. Every wall covered, floor to ceiling, in looping, careful cursive. I tried not to look too long at any of them. I settled in as the last orange light disappeared from the window. Time moves strangely when you're alone in a place like that. Minutes stretch into hours. You start hearing things, boards groaning, wind slipping through cracks. At first, I thought the sound of scratching upstairs was just the house settling. But then it changed. It wasn't random. It had rhythm. Like something, or someone, was pacing above me. 4 steps. Pause. 4 more. I told myself it was the wind. Maybe an animal. Raccoon, maybe. Then I heard a thump. Directly above me. Like a dropped boot. I froze. My flashlight flickered. There was no upstairs. The Murchison house was 1 story. My hands were shaking. I remember that clearly. Not just from fear, but from something deeper. Something instinctual. Like whatever was up there, where there wasn't supposed to be an up, knew I was alone. I should have run. I should have gotten out right then. But some horrible part of me needed to know. I crept toward the hallway. Every step felt louder than the last. The noise had stopped now. Silent. Like it was waiting. At the end of the hall was the bathroom. The door was half open. That's when I saw the mirror. It was tilted slightly, just enough to catch the hallway behind me. In the reflection, there was someone standing over my sleeping bag. I didn't turn around right away. I couldn't. I was staring at the mirror, frozen, breath shallow, my fingers clenched so tight around the flashlight I thought the plastic might crack. There was no sound. No movement. Just that still, distorted image in the mirror. A tall figure, shoulders hunched, standing over my sleeping bag like it had been watching me the whole time. I wanted to believe it was a trick of the light. Maybe some weird angle, some shadow thrown across the room. But then it shifted. Not fast. Just a slow tilt of the head. Toward me. That's when I ran. I didn't look behind me. I didn't need to. My body moved before my brain caught up. I crashed through the hallway, knocked over the shoe, stepped on glass. My legs didn't feel like mine. I just knew I needed to get out of that house. I hit the back panel so hard I thought I'd dislocated my shoulder. I fell through, scraped my knee on the brick path, and kept running. I didn't stop until I hit the road, panting, heart clawing at my ribs like it wanted to escape. Liam and Garrett were waiting there, wide-eyed, clearly not expecting me to come out that fast. Liam tried to laugh, asked if I saw a rat the size of a dog. I couldn't speak. I just sat on the curb, staring at the gravel, trying to slow my breathing. After a while, I told them. Not everything. Just about the mirror. The reflection. Garrett didn't say much. Liam said it was probably just me. That fear messes with your head. That if I went back in, I'd probably see it was nothing. But he didn't volunteer to prove it. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I convinced myself it had been a hallucination. Stress. Lack of sleep. A trick of shadows and nerves. That kind of fear needs to be rationalized or it eats you alive. But 3 days later, I found something in my backpack. It was folded neatly between my notebooks. A photograph. One I'd never seen before. It showed the living room of the Murchison house. Same broken fireplace. Same torn wallpaper. But the sleeping bag was there too. My sleeping bag. And in the background, just barely visible, was the mirror. In the mirror, I was standing in the hallway, looking at myself. Only, I hadn't taken a camera in with me. I burned the photo in my backyard grill. A month later, Garrett broke his leg. Fell down the stairs at school. Said he felt something push him from behind, but no one was there. A week after that, Liam stopped coming to class altogether. I heard his parents pulled him out and moved across the state. I kept my mouth shut. It's been 7 years since that night. The Murchison house was torn down 2 summers ago. Developers built a row of condos on the land. Bright, modern, sanitized. I drive past them sometimes. I never stop. Last week, a friend from high school messaged me out of the blue. Said her cousin just bought one of those condos. Unit 7. Said they're having trouble sleeping. They keep hearing footsteps on the roof. And this morning, she sent me a picture her cousin took of the hallway mirror. There was a name written on the wall behind them, almost hidden in shadow. In red ink, in looping cursive. It said, Liam. I found the listing online. It was buried 5 pages deep on some outdated rental site titled, Quaint Historic Cabin, 1 night only. The price was ridiculous, $5. No cleaning fee. No deposit. Just $5. The photos showed a narrow 2-story house nestled in the woods, all shadows and rotted siding, with a single handwritten note taped to the door, room 209 only. Do not enter other rooms. That should have been enough to stop me. But I was broke, stranded between semesters, and desperate to get away from my roommates. I booked it without thinking twice. When I pulled up the next evening, dusk had already settled into the trees. The driveway was a mess of gravel and weeds. There was no welcome mat. No porch light. Just that note, now curled and rain-stained, still clinging to the front door, room 209 only. The key was taped underneath the mailbox. The lock clicked too easily, like it hadn't been used in years. Inside, the air was thick with dust and mildew. The living room was crammed with old furniture, armchairs draped in sheets, a coffee table covered in faded magazines. The windows were grimy and the curtains drawn. I found the stairs at the back of the house, past a broken grandfather clock and a pile of newspapers that hadn't yellowed so much as gone gray. Each step creaked louder than the last. The railing was sticky. The hallway upstairs was lined with numbered doors, hotel style. Rooms 201 through 210. Only one door had a light under it. Room 209. I slipped the key into the lock and pushed it open. The room was surprisingly clean. Sparse, but clean. A bed, a nightstand, and a single lamp casting a dull amber glow. The sheets were fresh. The window was shut tight. I dropped my bag and lay down, half expecting the mattress to collapse beneath me. It didn't. For a while, I just listened. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No wind. No animal sounds. Just a low, constant hum I couldn't place, like distant machinery or an old fridge running in another room. I must have dozed off, because when I opened my eyes the lamp was off. And the humming was louder. It was coming from the hallway. I reached for my phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on. I tried the lamp. Nothing. Total darkness, except for a faint strip of light coming in from the crack under the door. The sound grew closer. I thought maybe it was a vacuum at first. Or a generator. But it had weight. It moved. Like something being dragged slowly down the hall. I slid out of bed and pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then a whisper. Not words. Just breath. Like someone trying not to wake a child. My hand was shaking as I turned the lock. The hallway was empty. The light above flickered once, then steadied. The drag sound had stopped. All the other doors were closed. Nothing seemed out of place. I turned back into the room, and froze. The bed was made. Perfectly made. Pillows fluffed, sheets tucked, like no one had ever lain down in it. But I had. I turned, stepped into the hallway, and noticed something new. Room 210's door was cracked open. Only slightly, but definitely ajar. I stared at it for a long time, my feet rooted to the spot. I never touched that door. I was sure of it. I don't know how long I stood there staring at the door to room 210. It couldn't have opened on its own. There was no draft. No one else was supposed to be in the house. I had locked the front door behind me. I was sure of it. The light in the hallway dimmed again, just for a second. Enough to make me step back toward room 209. I closed my door, turned the lock slowly, and sat down on the edge of the bed that now looked untouched. I didn't try the lamp again. I didn't try my phone. I just sat there in the dark, listening. The hum was gone now. Replaced by something worse, silence. Total and deliberate, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps. Not on my door. Not even close. It was coming from room 210. I got up quietly. Not sure what I meant to do. Not sure if I was going to leave or open it or yell, or just listen. The hallway was darker than before. The light above flickered in a slow, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. The door to room 210 was still ajar, but now it was open just enough for me to see inside. I took a step forward. I should have turned and run. I should have grabbed my bag and gone out the window if I had to. But something about the open door, the way it was waiting for me, pulled me closer. The room was empty. No bed. No furniture. Just an old mirror on the far wall. Tall. Wide. Dusty. And leaning just slightly forward, like it had slid a few inches from its base. I stepped inside. The light behind me flickered again, and then died completely. The room went black, but not empty. I knew there was something else in there. I could feel it. Like when someone's staring at you in a crowd. Like being watched through a lens you can't see. I backed out slowly. As I crossed the threshold, the hallway lights blinked on again, harsh and white. Room 210's door slammed shut behind me. I didn't stop. I grabbed my bag, ran down the stairs, and hit the front door full speed. I didn't bother locking it behind me. The second I was out, the air felt different. Lighter. Colder. Real. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. When I got back to my apartment, I finally checked my phone. The time read 3:09 a.m. There were no messages. No missed calls. Nothing unusual. Except one photo in my gallery I didn't take. It was of the mirror. In room 210. And in the reflection, I could see myself standing at the door, mouth open, 1 foot inside, and something else behind me. A shape. Not quite a person. Tall, narrow, almost skeletal. Standing too close. Its head tilted, watching. There were words scratched across the bottom of the photo in red. Almost too faint to read. It said, "Only room 209? I deleted it. I don't know why. It felt like leaving it there would give it power. That was 2 months ago. Last week, I saw another listing. Different site. Same price. Same rules. Only this time, the title didn't say room 209 only. It said room 210 only. And this time, it was in my city. 5 blocks from where I lived. It was supposed to be an adventure. Our senior year photography club had this dumb tradition. Every fall, one of us would pick a forgotten place to shoot, and we'd spend the night there. Cemeteries, burnt barns, old train stations. The spookier the better. That year, it was my turn to choose. I picked Echo House. I'd never actually been inside, but I knew where it was, an old farmhouse at the edge of Barker Woods. The kind of place you only see from the freeway. Blackened windows, chimney collapsed, roof like a rotted ribcage. The name came from some local legend, but no one really remembered the story. Just that it was cursed, or haunted, or both. I convinced Jordan and Mel to come. We packed our gear, tripods, lenses, a thermos of gas station coffee, and headed out just before sunset. The house looked worse up close. Like it had been forgotten for decades. Even the weeds around it seemed to grow sideways, leaning away. We broke in through the side. The door gave way with one good push. Inside, it smelled like wet brick and old blood. There were feathers on the floor. Not from birds. Just scattered, like someone had torn open a dozen pillows in different rooms. The living room had collapsed partially into the basement. The kitchen was still intact, though the table was flipped and all the drawers yanked out like someone had been searching for something in a panic. We found a narrow staircase behind the pantry. The upper floor was better, 2 bedrooms and a small hallway. We set up camp in the one with the least broken floorboards. By 11 p.m., we'd taken hundreds of shots. Mel's flash kept misfiring. Jordan said her camera wouldn't save anything. Mine worked fine, but everything came out grainy, even with perfect lighting. We took a break, sitting on the floor in a half circle, sipping coffee and scrolling through our ruined pictures. That's when I noticed something weird in one of mine. It was a wide shot of the hallway, meant to capture the strange texture on the walls. But at the far end of the shot, barely visible, was a face. Not ours. Too low to be standing. Too high to be sitting. It looked like it was just peeking around the corner. Hair over one eye. Wide grin. I didn't say anything at first. Didn't want to be that guy. But then Jordan spoke up. "Did you hear that?" We all froze. There it was again. A creak 2 rooms down. Heavy, deliberate. Not the house settling. Not the wind. I muted my phone's volume and pulled up the photo again. Zoomed in. The face was gone. I could have sworn it was there. Then something scraped against the wall. Slow. Long. Like a nail being dragged along drywall. Mel whispered that we should leave. Jordan agreed. I went to pack up, and realized my tripod was missing. I swore I'd set it by the window. It wasn't there. We turned the room over twice, checked the hallway, even peeked over the stairwell. Gone. That's when we noticed the faint sound. Coming from the other bedroom. A soft click, followed by a whir. Like a camera. Someone, something, was taking pictures in the next room. None of us wanted to go toward that sound. We stood there in the half-lit hallway, holding our breath, listening to the soft click and whir of a shutter winding back. Then again. And again. Each photo like a second ticking off the clock. Jordan whispered my name and pointed to the floor. The tripod. It was right there, halfway into the doorway of the other room. Standing perfectly upright. Camera attached. Lens aimed at the wall. No one had put it there. I wanted to believe I was losing it, that maybe I'd grabbed it without remembering. But I couldn't ignore how wrong everything felt. How heavy the air was. Like something else was breathing in that room. I took a step forward. Jordan grabbed my sleeve. Don't. But I had to see. I had to know what was on that camera. I approached the doorway slowly, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The room beyond was completely dark except for a faint flash from the camera every few seconds. The shutter clicked one more time as I stepped in. Empty. No furniture. No movement. Just dust motes and the smell of ash. I grabbed the camera and backed out fast. Mel had her flashlight out. Jordan had already stuffed her gear in her bag. We all knew we weren't staying. We bolted down the stairs. Halfway to the kitchen, I heard the first playback sound, the soft electronic beep of a camera displaying an image. I didn't look. Not then. We broke out through the side door, hearts in our throats, and didn't stop until we were back in the car. Once the doors were locked, once the headlights lit the road, I finally pulled the camera up and checked the shots. There were 8 new photos. All of the same room. All the same angle. The first 4 were empty. The 5th had a blur in the corner. The 6th, closer. A figure. Low to the ground. The 7th. It was at the center of the frame now. Facing the camera. On all fours. Head tilted too far sideways. Mouth open too wide. Eyes black pits that didn't reflect the flash. The 8th photo was of me. From the doorway. But I hadn't set the timer. I hadn't taken it. The worst part was that I wasn't looking at the camera in the picture. I was looking over my shoulder. We left the house behind us and didn't speak until we hit the highway. No one said goodbye. No one made a joke. I deleted the pictures, or thought I did, but they kept showing up in my phone's gallery, even days later. I tried to convince myself it was a glitch. A corrupted SD card. But then Mel stopped responding to texts. A week later, Jordan moved to another state without warning. Her number changed. Her accounts disappeared. I haven't heard from either of them since. Last night, I got a message from an unknown number. No text. Just an image. A photo of my apartment window. Taken from the fire escape. I live on the 4th floor. There's no fire escape. I didn't expect much when I booked it. The listing didn't have photos, just a text description: remote cabin, 1 bed, 0 noise. The price was too low, which should have been the first red flag. But I needed the silence. I'd been dealing with a ringing in my ears, something between tinnitus and static, and my doctor told me to find somewhere quiet, no electronics, no traffic, no people. So I did. The host messaged me right after I booked. The message said only this: no sounds after midnight. Not even breathing. I figured it was a joke. Or a weird marketing gimmick. The cabin was deep in the woods, miles from any main road. I parked and hiked the rest of the way. When I found it, I thought I had the wrong place. It was much older than I expected. Log walls, moss-eaten roof, the windows blacked out with thick curtains nailed to the frame. The door creaked like it was straining to open. Inside was off. Everything looked clean. Dusted. Arranged. But there were no mirrors. No clocks. No radio, no stove, no sign of time passing. Just a bed, a chair, and a wooden table with a piece of paper resting on it. It said, no sounds after midnight. 1. Do not whisper. 2. Do not move the furniture. 3. Do not eat. 4. Do not drink. 5. Do not breathe too loud. There was a final note, smaller than the rest. If you hear breathing, it is not yours. I sat in the chair for a long time, listening. The place was deathly silent. No wind. No birds. Even my footsteps seemed muffled. By nightfall, I was exhausted. I lay in the bed and stared at the ceiling, waiting for the familiar static to buzz in my ears. But it didn't. It was the first time in weeks I'd heard nothing. I must have fallen asleep around 10. When I woke up, it was still dark. My phone was dead, even though I hadn't touched it. The room was black. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. That's when I heard it. A breath. Sharp. Wet. Too close. It wasn't mine. I froze. Listened. It was coming from under the bed. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared straight ahead into the dark and tried not to breathe. The breath below me grew louder. Shallow. Like someone trying not to cough. Then it stopped. Complete silence. I lay there for what felt like hours. When the sun finally came through the curtains, I rolled out of bed. There was nothing under it. No one. No marks on the floor. I convinced myself it had been a dream. Sleep paralysis. Maybe even my own breath echoing weirdly in the silent room. That night, I went to bed earlier. Still no noise. Still no ringing in my ears. But I kept the flashlight under the pillow, just in case. At 12:03 a.m., the lamp turned off on its own. And I heard the chair move. I didn't move. The sound was unmistakable, the scrape of wood legs across the floor. Slow, deliberate. Like someone dragging the chair an inch at a time. There was no wind. No open windows. No draft. Something was in the room with me. I held the flashlight tight in one hand and waited, barely daring to breathe. The sound stopped after 3 movements. Then came silence. Thick and unnatural, like the whole house was listening back. I counted to 30 in my head. Then flicked on the flashlight. The chair was facing the bed now. It had been facing the table when I lay down. I scanned the room. No one. No shadows. No movement. But the air felt heavier, like someone had just stepped out of sight. I swung the light toward the door. Still closed. No scratches, no marks. I waited for morning without sleeping. When daylight finally arrived, I packed my bag. I was ready to leave. I didn't care about the refund. I didn't care about the silence anymore. I just wanted out. The door wouldn't open. Not jammed. Not stuck. Locked. From the outside. There was no bolt, no chain, no keyhole. Just a blank brass knob that turned freely but did nothing. I checked the windows. Nailed shut. Painted over. I even tried kicking them in, but they didn't budge. It was like they weren't glass at all. By noon I was panicking. At 3, I found the new note. It hadn't been there before. It was on the pillow. Same handwriting. No sounds after midnight. You made a sound. You moved. You heard. There was no signature. No hint of who had written it or how it appeared. The hours crawled. I kept the flashlight in my lap and sat in the corner, facing the door. Watching. Waiting. I tried holding my breath to see how long I could go. 40 seconds. That night I didn't lie down. I didn't even blink long enough for sleep to sneak in. At 12:01, I felt a breeze. Cold. From nowhere. At 12:02, the curtains shivered. At 12:03, the chair creaked again. But this time, I saw it move. It wasn't scraping now. It was rocking. Back and forth. Empty. At 12:04, I heard a whisper right behind my ear. 3 syllables. A voice I didn't recognize. Or worse, maybe I did. It said, "Not again." That's when I remembered something. The ringing in my ears? The static? It had started right after I moved into my new apartment last year. And the landlord had mentioned it used to be a recording studio. One with thick walls. No sound. No echoes. Just like this cabin. I think I brought something with me that day. Something I couldn't hear at first. Something that lives in the quiet. In the moments between noise. I think I've been feeding it. And last night, I broke the rules. This morning, I woke up outside. Not just outside the house, outside the forest. Lying in the dirt. My bag was next to me. My phone worked again. No photos. No messages. Except one. A voice recording. It was only 3 seconds long. My voice. Saying, "Not again." The house wasn't supposed to still be there. I hadn't seen it since I was 9. Back then, it was just a blurry spot in the woods behind my aunt's farm, half collapsed, half buried in weeds, roof long gone. My cousin and I used to dare each other to run up and touch the porch. We never went in. At least, I don't remember going in. But last month, I got a key in the mail. No return address. Just a small box with a brass key inside and a note. "You forgot something. Bedroom upstairs, left side. Please lock up this time." I don't know why I went. I told myself it was just a prank, something a friend from my past had cooked up. But I didn't have many friends back then. And none who knew about the blue house. I drove 6 hours back to that town. The woods were smaller now. The farmland sold off. The place looked wrong, cleaner, trimmed back, like someone had been caring for it in secret. And the house? It looked untouched. Fresh paint. Blue siding. White trim. Windows intact. Like it had never decayed at all. I pulled into the overgrown drive. My hands were sweating on the wheel. The key in my pocket felt hot. There was no mail. No welcome mat. But the door opened easily with the key. Inside, the air was warm. Still. The way a lived-in house feels after a day with no movement. There was furniture. A couch with crochet pillows. A ticking wall clock. Framed photos I didn't recognize. A bowl of wax fruit on the table. I walked through the rooms like I was moving through someone else's memory. Everything was wrong. There was a smell in the house I couldn't place. Not rot. Not mildew. More like the scent of something forgotten. Faint. Sweet. Like stale baby powder and something sour beneath. I climbed the stairs. The bedroom on the left had its door open. Inside was a bed with a blue quilt, a dresser, and a wooden chair in the corner. The window was slightly open. There was a small, cloth-bound book on the bed. I picked it up. No title. No author. Just a series of entries, all in the same handwriting. Each one was dated. Each one was a single sentence. He came back again. He stood outside the window. He knows I saw him. He left the door open. He was inside last night. The last entry said, "He won't leave this time." There was no signature. No explanation. Just that. I should have left. I know that. But I sat down on the edge of the bed and opened the window all the way. Outside, the trees didn't move. The grass didn't bend. There was no wind. And then I saw him. A figure, standing just inside the tree line. Perfectly still. Head tilted. Watching. I blinked, and he was gone. But when I turned back into the room, the chair was no longer empty. I didn't look at the chair right away. I couldn't. My eyes fixed on the floor, heart hammering like I'd been sprinting. My mouth was dry. Every instinct told me not to move. Not to acknowledge it. But I had to. The chair creaked softly as I lifted my gaze. It was empty again. I don't know how long I stared, waiting for something to move. But nothing did. Not the chair. Not the curtains. Not the light, which came from nowhere but still cast clear shadows. I stepped backward out of the room and pulled the door shut with a trembling hand. Downstairs, the ticking clock had stopped. The wax fruit had melted slightly, as if hours had passed. I opened the front door. It was night outside. Full dark. When I entered the house, it had been late afternoon. There was no sunset. No time passing. Just instant night. Like a curtain had dropped between blinks. I slammed the door shut and turned back into the living room. The photos on the wall had changed. Before, they were strangers. Now they were me. Different ages. Same face. Sitting on that couch. Standing in that hallway. One of them even asleep in the upstairs bedroom. I staggered back. I hadn't posed for these. I had never been here like that. But each photo showed me, older and older, wearing clothes I'd never owned, in moments I didn't remember. And one was dated tomorrow. I had to leave. I grabbed the key from my pocket and rushed to the door. But the lock was gone. Just smooth wood where the knob used to be. The note from the package had said, "Please lock up this time." That meant I hadn't before. Which meant I had been here once. Which meant maybe I hadn't left at all. Something creaked above me. The chair. Again. I backed into the kitchen, heart pounding. The air felt thick now. Heavy. Like I was breathing through fabric. I turned to the back door, but it led into another hallway. Not outside. The hallway ended in another door. And another after that. The house was shifting. stretching, looping in on itself. I tried each door. Each one opened into another version of the same room. Living room, kitchen, bedroom. Over and over. Until I opened one door and saw the chair again. Only this time, I was already sitting in it. Or something that looked like me. Same clothes. Same posture. But the eyes were wrong. Too wide. Too empty. I slammed the door shut and dropped the key. That's when I realized the ticking had returned. Louder now. Insistent. Coming from inside the walls. I screamed. Not a yell. A true scream. Full body. No thought behind it. The sound died in my throat like the air itself had swallowed it. The house doesn't let you leave through doors. It lets you leave when it wants to. And the only way out is silence. Total, complete, obedient silence. I'm writing this now from a motel 2 towns over. I don't remember how I got here. Just woke up on the bed with the key on the pillow beside me. Same brass. Same warmth. There's a note beneath it. Same handwriting. It says, "You left the window open." He got out.